on, do you want to tell us just a little about your book?
This is my baby. I wrote this baby some years ago and self-published it in 2016. And it's the outcome of a long process of writing, which I know you're familiar with. And well, this year I finished writing the second part, so I can't wait to share with the world as well. And it's just it's a fantasy book, so you have a lot of battles there with good versus evil, with elves, wizards, and dwarves, and eventually dragons. They're coming, they're on their way, so that's some secret information for you. And well, I've never done something like this before, so I'm very thankful for this opportunity, as I'm actually just passing by through Scotland. So I feel very loved by Scotland right now. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
So why don't you read us a partnership?
Thank you. Yeah, I've never done this before. Well, the first chapter is a bit rocky, but I guess we just go from the start. Okay, so you can hear me okay? Yes. So this is chapter 1, The Storm. The storm was the fiercest they had ever beheld. It was wave against wave and wave against ship. Rain poured brutally from the dark clouds over the decks of the 3 ships, blinding all aboard who tried their best to stand their ground. Some helped evacuate the water so it would not sink their ship, and others looked after the wounded as the harsh wind tattered the once white sails, which now hung eerily from above. "Hold on," cried out New Zealand, who with great strength and dexterity managed to keep her ship from crashing into the occasional rocks that hid between the mighty waves. Her long dark hair moved wildly behind her delicately pointed ears, and her olive cloak danced recklessly about her body as the mighty wind snapped the brooch that held it together, snatched it away until it was lost in the dark, cloudy skies. She looked at the ship next to hers and saw the crew struggle against the wind and the rain. "Turion," she called out over the booming thunder towards her ship's colossal sails. "Princess," shouted back a golden-haired elf who treaded daringly on the main yard of the ship's mighty mast. He jumped down and quickly made his way across the deck to where Sealand stood, his movements effortless, though the ship rocked violently. "What is your command?" "I need you to board my father's ship," she said, gesturing with the side of her head. He stopped to look at her. "Board your father's ship?" "Yes," she said. "But what about you, Princess?" he asked. "Never mind that," she replied, avoiding his eyes. "They need you more than I do. I will be fine." "Sealand," he began, taking a step closer to her. "That is an order," she interrupted, stopping him with her green eyes. He did not reply. Instead, he looked into them as if speaking to her with his mind. She knew she could send anyone to her father's ship, and surely he did as well. But she could not shake the feeling that he had to go for now. For a moment, it seemed as if they were about to speak, but before she could give him the chance, she diverted her gaze towards the front of the ship and spoke coolly. "Go now, before it is too late for them." He hesitated once again and looked at her with frustration clear across his face, but there was nothing he could do now or say to change her mind. So he lowered his head without protest and walked away. As he stepped into the railing of the ship, his hands tightening on a lonely rope, he looked at her once more and replied under his breath, "As you wish." Izina met his eyes just seconds before he left, but she did not say a word. She saw him land on the sister ship and make haste to help those aboard. The raindrops on her face trickled down as she turned her eyes away. He was safe. Turion landed firmly and quickly made his way to help secure the sails. The wind was fierce and the rain sharp on his hands, but he did not falter. Only his eyes would wander from time to time to the ship nearby. The storm seemed lesser and the waves did not rock the ship as violently as before, but it was a silence that did not last for long. For without warning, a massive wave rose as high as a mountain, blocking out the little light that peeked through the dark clouds above them. Turion felt the darkness surround him. He became paralyzed with the sight as the dark mass suspended itself high in the sky. In a matter of seconds, it came down with an intensity of 1,000 blows, But the wave did not fall on the 3 ships. It fell on only one, the third ship that floated nearby. The cracking of the mast and the groaning of the ship and the cries of the people filled the air. Those aboard the other 2 ships looked upon the shattered one in horror. Captain Nimel shouted in a strong voice from below deck. A very tall, silver-haired elf emerged from the flooded stairs, his clothes drenched in seawater, but the weight of it did not slow his stride as he crossed the deck. His manners were strong, yet elegant, and his bearing was that of a warrior. "Turn the ship around," he commanded decidedly. "We must reach the others now." "Aye, my king," Captain Nimel shouted back as she turned the steering wheel with haste, ordering her crew to make the sails. The elven king joined in and helped his people, but suddenly stopped as he found himself face to face with Turian. "Turian," said the king, his eyes filled with surprise. "What are you doing here?" "King Thenediel," Turian replied as he continued to help the crew. "Isilin sent me." "Isilin?" Thenediel said under his breath, almost as if he were trying to remember something he had forgotten. Then a grave look crossed the king's face as his bright silver eyes fell on the young elven warrior, who looked at him with concern. "You were supposed to stay with her, Turian." He was about to reply, but a strange, inhuman cry suddenly pierced the skies. They both turned instinctively to look at Isilin's ship. She was standing before the mast, giving orders to her sturdy crew, but she too suddenly looked up and around to find where the cry had come from. Her eyes fell on them, and she stopped to look at her father and Turian momentarily. But almost as if by an invisible hand, something violently pushed her ship away across the sea and into the darkness, making it look as fragile as light and as a leaf. It all happened so quickly and silently that it seemed too surreal to be true. Turian's eyes widened from the sight, and the king called out his daughter's name into the dark. But it was too late. The ship was gone, and so was she.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So that's your name is Constanza.
Yeah, Constanza Meir, and my book is The Battle of the Erethiel, Across the Enchanted Sea. And it's a really long saga. It has no end so far because it came from a previous story. So I started going into the past, into the past, into the past, and then I said stop. You have to go from here forward. So it's my first book, and it's not my first language. My first language is Spanish. So it was an effort, but I don't know, I just went for it. So thank you for listening. It means a lot to me.
Well done. Well, thank you very much for coming along. Thank you.